We've given so many obscure indicators on this channel already, but this one here is so obscure. I've never even heard of it before. So might it be the Holy Grail? One way to find out, traders. Welcome to the Indicator Profile series for this Wednesday. It is the J_PTO indicator. We're just going to call it the JPTO. What does it stand for? I have no idea. I'm not even sure Dan Stone knows. But who cares? As long as it works, right? Let's find out. So, before we start, understand, if you're new here, please enjoy this video, but a lot of stuff we talk about will not make a lot of sense. Go to nononsenseforex.com, read that first page, get started. It will be worth it. So without further ado, let's run the specs for the J_PTO indicator. The year it was created was 2004. Again, that falls very well within the range we like to see. What's interesting about this is, unlike indicators in the past, we have no idea who created it. It was a shadowy supercoder somewhere in the middle of nowhere, bringing this indicator to us 18 years later. You know, the mystery just goes deeper and deeper here. Now, this is going to be a confirmation indicator. It's going to be a zero cross. I can't remember if we've even done a zero cross on this series. I think we've done one, but this will be something we don't do too often. Now, as far as being an exit indicator, I don't love zero cross confirmation indicators as exit indicators, but you could certainly try it. You know, we're going to learn in this video that a lot of the things that I would do back in the day probably weren't very optimal because I did everything by hand, but that's fine. That is to your benefit. But let's go ahead and take a look at this sucker here. Now you're going to see zero cross indicators go like this. If you didn't already know, we wait for the line to cross and then close above the zero line for a long signal. Now, the one good thing about this is you're going to see a lot of false signals in the example, but when it does give you a nice long trend, it gets you in pretty darn early, which is nice. Now, one of the things I've said in the past about these examples is if the programmer is not even going to give you a good example to show you, like doesn't give you a still shot of this indicator working really, really well, how good could it actually be? You know, so a lot of times I would skip over something if they didn't give me a good result to show. But sometimes these programmers don't care. I've said in the past, a lot of programmers don't trade. So they're just putting these things out there. You know, they may not even know what a good result even looks like. So there's a pretty good chance I was putting too much stock in things like this in the past. But you have to remember, when you do everything by hand, you can't just sit down and test all 10,000. I would still be doing it right now, and this channel would never come out. You know, so I had to find ways to skip over certain indicators that I thought had a lower chance of making the cut. But again, probably not the most optimal way to do things. With the technology we have now, you can and should do better. But you will get short signals as well. So when the line crosses and closes beyond that zero line, that is going to be your short. And I don't know if you guys can see, as my stupid mouse cursor disappears all the time, but here it is. So you would get in right about there, maybe there, and then get all that. But again, you do see a lot of areas that were problematic as well. That is why you need to do your own testing. We will do some for you, but you need to do the rest. Now, a couple things before we move on too. What's interesting about how this indicator actually works from the nuts and bolts, which again is something I don't pay too much attention to, I know Dan does, I know a lot of you do, is there's only one setting that you need to tweak, which is, I think, generally good. And if you remember what we said last week, when it comes to volume and volatility indicators, you will come across a lot of indicators that have volatility and even volume factored into the equation, but that does not make them a volume or volatility indicator. I wonder how many people have come across this and actually thought they were testing a volume indicator. This is not. This is a confirmation indicator, true and true. But it does have volatility factored into the overall equation. So that's just something to look out for. Now, just because it has that doesn't mean you can just use this and then not use a volume indicator for your Forex trading. It's still critically important. But I wanted to point that out just in case anybody ever runs into any confusion on that end. So how did something this obscure do in our testing? Well, let's get to that. But first, understand if you don't like the way we test, then what are you doing here? Go somewhere else. What's your problem? But also know that down below, we're going to give you some very important links. The first one in the description is a link to my automation blog, which gives you a video on how to test these yourself in the MT4 Strategy Tester. Now, if you are a TradingView trader, I do have somebody on that blog that will convert MT4 to TradingView. But that's the best we can do right now. If you can't find some of these on TradingView, and that's going to happen, especially with something probably this obscure, then paying a little bit of money to a guy who can do it for you is probably your best course of action right now. You will also get the actual link to the blog post for this indicator that goes in much deeper and also shows you the tweaked settings that I purposely leave out on these videos. If you don't know, the tweaked settings, once you get to the blog, are going to be just to the right of the still frames that I show you in the next few slides. And then, as always, a place where you can actually go download this yourself. Again, don't do what I do. I dismissed a lot of these just by a bad example being shown to me. Maybe not the best way to go. Maybe I should have hung on to a lot of them. Who knows? But without further ado, let's move on to the results on Euro USD. Decent. Really, for something this obscure, I expected calamity. But this did all right. On the default, it was already plus ROI, and then with the tweaks, it made it even closer to 10%, which is nice. A little less so on the 4-hour, needed a bit more tweaking, but there you go. A total of 36 trades in a year on the Euro USD. Probably high for me, but for some people, that's exactly what they're looking for. Now over to gold, which has historically been unkind to the indicator profile series, but not so much here, especially on the daily. This is good. Even the 4-hour, which has been so brutal that a lot of times we can't even come up with anything with a positive ROI. Able to crank out 13.5 on this thing, which is great. But even better if you're a daily trader. And 26 trades a year on gold is a little more in a comfort zone that I am comfortable with myself. Like I said, everybody is different. Now, the funny one is Bitcoin. Look at where it started, and look where it ended up. That's crazy. Again, I would absolutely throw this indicator in the trash and never go visit it again if I was testing the default, which I always do to start, and I was getting results like this. Goodbye. Don't come back, you piece of trash indicator. But if I would have actually hung on to it and gone further, like I said, one, I would never get anything done, but could end up with something pretty good there. That's a great starting point for a confirmation indicator. And to me, 20 trades a year is darn near perfect. So it just goes to show. A handful of things I told you 3-4 years ago still hold up now for sure. Most of them actually do. But you just have to remember the context of things and the way I was doing things all throughout the 2010s. I was doing them in a very suboptimal manner on purpose. But you certainly don't have to do it that way now, and it is probably to your benefit to do things in the more updated version. You know, optimal is optimal. Suboptimal is suboptimal. Do things as optimally as you possibly can. And you know what's a really optimal move? Probably more than anything I can think of is to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. You know, if you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up. That helps too, but subscribing really, really helps. And you guys know I'm not going to blow up your notifications with a bunch of nonsense. If a video is coming out, it's going to be fire. You're going to learn something. You may learn a lot. And I may be showing you an indicator that will end up in your algorithm for the next 10 years. You just don't know. I may recommend something on a podcast episode that ends up being a buy and hold for the next 10 years. You won't know if you miss out. So subscribe, hit the bell. I will see you soon, and go get it.